schedules, so the fact that you're taking an hour to spend it here with me, I am very grateful. Thank you. My intention for this is that you guys are all going to walk away with a tool that's going to help you in your business and in your personal life. And so I've tried to jam pack as much value as I possibly can into 30 minutes. So that, on that note, we'll just get started. So why do we do what we do? Why do we build businesses? Why do we push ourselves to achieve more even when we've been successful? Why do we start families? Why do we have kids? Why do we say we want change but then have such a hard time changing? All really good questions, and the human needs can answer all of them. So every decision we make in business and in life is driven by our core human needs, which I'll touch on as we go. But today you're going to walk away with a deeper understanding of these needs and how you can apply them for growth, leadership, better relationships, and personal fulfillment. I had this in here in case you didn't know who I was, but everybody here I think knows who I am, so we don't need to cover that. So what are the 6 human needs? So certainty, uncertainty, variety, significance, love and connection, and then contribution and growth. So the first 4 are the needs of your personality. The second 2 are the needs of the spirit. So when I first started learning about these, I was like, these are great, but I don't really understand how those are going to apply to me in my daily life. What do they mean? So I'm going to break it down just a little bit further. So the first thing is certainty. So this is the need that we feel safe, we feel comfortable, we feel certain. And so imagine if you knew all the time what was going to happen in your day-to-day. You knew you were going to wake up and this was going to happen. You knew what everybody was going to say. At first that might be a little bit exciting. You're like, I know exactly what's going to happen. But eventually it would get boring, right? So this is why we have a need for variety. So this is the need for change, for excitement, for challenges and new experiences. Then there's significance. This is the need to feel important, to feel unique, and to feel valued. This is very important to us. Love and connection is the need for belonging, relationships, intimacy, connection, and feeling included. Growth is the need to develop, evolve, improve, and expand yourself. And then contribution is the need to give and make a difference beyond yourself. So how are your dominant needs impacting the choices you're making today in your business, in your career, and in your personal life? Now I say dominant needs, and there's a reason why I say that. So we all have the same 6 needs. So they've traveled the world. So it doesn't matter what country you live in, what culture you're from, what religion you have, we all have these needs. So they've done this, they've traveled the world, and we know of this. But we don't all value needs the same way. And so that's why we are different. And we react differently, and things are important to us in different ways. But we're always going to value 2 needs more than the other ones. And that determines your direction, things that you choose to do and things you don't choose to do. So we will fulfill our needs in one way or another. So whether it's positive, neutral, or negative. And when I say that, it can be, the idea is that you are able to fulfill your needs in a way that's positive to you, the people around you, and the greater good. So that can vary, and I'll give examples so we can talk about that. But we all have different ways of fulfilling our needs. So I'll give you a couple examples. Somebody who wants to fulfill their need for certainty, for example, somebody, in order to do that, so we have rules on how we do this. So to fulfill certainty, for example, you may be able to just pray. So for one person, praying may give them that. Another person may need $10 million in the bank to feel certain. So you have to understand first what your human needs are, and then what the rules are that you've created, generally subconsciously, on how to meet that rule. So I'll tell you just an example. Okay, so I have a client, CEO of a company, and he came to me and he felt extremely undervalued. So he'd go into the office and he was just like, I don't feel like anybody's listening to me. I don't feel like they care. I don't feel valued. I don't even feel liked. And I said, okay, so why don't you feel that way, right? And so he says, when I go into the office, I walk into a room and nobody's paying attention. So I said, okay, so what has to happen for you to walk away feeling significant from that? And he goes, well, people should look at me when I walk into the room. And he's kind of smiling at this point because he's starting to realize there's a subconscious thing that's happening, right? And so I said, okay, how many rooms do you need to walk into and somebody to make eye contact with you in order for you to walk away feeling valued and feeling significant from your day? And he starts to kind of chuckle because he's like, well, every room. So I'm like, so your rule, in order for you to go home and feel significant, was that you'd have to go into every single room and somebody would make eye contact and acknowledge your presence. So what he understood then is that, okay, now I have awareness around this rule that I've written for how to feel significant. And when you can see that, you can kind of have a laugh at yourself in his particular circumstance, right? And it was like, okay, well, what do I actually believe or want to believe, and what rule can I write in order for me to fulfill that? And how can I do that on an internal and not expect externally in my environment to fulfill my needs? Are we following along so far? Does that make sense?
How's he walking into the room?
Pardon?
What's his demeanor like walking into this way?
Yeah.
His head down and is he to himself?
Well, probably at some point that could happen, right? So if at first he started walking in with confidence, but he has this written rule that in order to feel good, to feel significant, to feel valued, people need to look at him, he walks into that with the confidence and then doesn't get that, which he doesn't realize that that's what he's really needing. Well, now all of a sudden, eventually, as he continues to walk in the room, he gets less and less confidence,
Right.
less happy in the environment.
What type of value is he providing to his team, to those people, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Look at it that way as well.
Yep. So you need to know what your human needs are and then your blueprint to fulfilling them. So there's a bit more depth that you need to understand. Okay, so I'll have a fun little thing for you guys. So these two things provide the same need. So they fulfill the same need. Can you guess what the need is?
Dopamine.
Yes, it is certainty.
Certainty.
So smoking and exercising both give people certainty. So smoking, if you are stressed at work and you want to be unstressed, what's one way you could fulfill that need? Where you could feel comfort, you could feel secure, you could feel, a cigarette does that. The other thing it actually does is, and we can talk about this, but your physiology. So your physiology can change your state, your mood, what you think, how you feel, and how you act. And so when smoking actually does is somebody takes a big deep breath, that's probably where they should stop, is just with breathing and not with the smoking. But that's what it's doing. So they're changing their physiology, and then they know exactly what's going to happen after they get that cigarette, right? Stress is going to come down. So same thing happens with exercise. So when you go to exercise, what you're doing is you know how you're going to feel afterwards. Maybe we don't want to do it right out the gate, but you know at the end of that exercise how you're going to feel and what it's going to do for you. So they both provide certainty in your life. Now, one way is very sustainable. One way is not sustainable. So most people work in a way that meets their needs in the moment, but not long term. So they have to continue the same behavior over and over and over again, meeting their needs in achievable ways, but not sustainable ones. So certainty by working out, zero downside. Smoking, big downside. A point here worth mentioning too is that why would we keep a problem? So if we know smoking is a problem, why would we keep it?
Comfortable.
Yes, yes. So what happens here is that it meets some of our needs, but not all of them. And so when that happens, if it met all of your needs, you wouldn't want to get rid of it. But it meets them just enough that it's a problem that you can't get rid of, if that makes sense. So there's disempowering ways of fulfilling your needs, and there are empowering ways of fulfilling your needs.
So in that scenario, let's say for the smoker,
Yeah.
to get rid of said problem, are they then, like, do they have to find a new way to fulfill that certainty?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so we'll talk more about that too. So I'll go into it as we talk, but if you have a habit that fulfills 3 of your human needs, it is extremely hard to break. And I will show you on the whiteboard how to break the pattern.
Maybe guys in the hack of the butt and then go to the gym.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about in the workplace. I can't run through all 6 human needs, so let's run through just the example of certainty and how that plays out for an employee in the workplace, as a leader, and in your personal life, just so you guys kind of get an idea of how they play out. So in the workplace, if an employee who values certainty, right, if we have that, what are they seeking? If you have somebody in your work and they need certainty, that's their top need, what kinds of things in the workplace are they looking for?
Guidance.
Stability.
Stability, guidance.
SOPs or structure.
Yes, yes. Yep. So they want job security. So they're a company that's a little bit fluctuating, or say, I don't want to take us too far off because I get excited and go on tangents, But let's say your leader loves variety. Like let's say their top need is variety. So they're like, let's try this, let's go do this, we're gonna go do this because it's exciting and it's fun, and they don't have that like need for comfort. Maybe they get that a lot at home. So the workplace is like their playground to try a bunch of different things. Well, an employee whose top need is certainty is not gonna be happy there. They're gonna feel stressed, they're gonna feel disengaged, they are not gonna, it will not work for them. So these people, these employees who, for certainty, they thrive in a place that feels stable and predictable. So what kinds of things as an employer can we do to give that certainty at work? So we sort of talked about that, right? It's policies and procedures, it's having those kinds of conversations. It can even be as easy as like, instead of giving people a chance to clarify. So instead of assuming people are on the same page, it's just asking, is this clear? So sometimes that doesn't even happen. So we miss that in our conversations. And sometimes people just need a chance to be like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? They need expectations. They need to know what's happening. Okay, any questions on the employee part? Cool. So as a leader, so what if the leader's top need is certainty? What do they want? What do they need?
Same thing, structure, stability.
Yep.
Team.
They like consistency. Yes, 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 exactly. And so they likely value that in their team too. And so if there's somebody in the team who isn't consistent, that is going to drive this leader nuts. And they'll probably just view that person as a problem, not understanding that, looking at them, that there's other needs or things that that person maybe will need. So this leader may be less likely to take risks, which can create a level of stability, so they can show up as very structured and methodical, which can be really good, especially for getting a company going and getting it off the ground. But it can also lead to missed opportunities, innovation, expansion, and growth because they are in their comfort zone. So we'll talk about this. So when you know your human needs, you can then assess yourself and say, okay, am I making this decision based off of fear? So if my top need is certainty, so then I'm gonna look and say, okay, am I not doing that acquisition? Am I not taking on that project? Am I not putting a live on Instagram because I'm coming from a place of fear because I want to stay in my comfort zone because my top need is certainty, for example. Does that make sense? So whereas if you know that your top need is certainty, you can look at other ways in your life to fulfill that and then go into your business and say, okay, well, I'm actually not doing that, not because I don't subconsciously really want to do that because I'm afraid to do those things, but because it just doesn't make business sense. Okay, is that clear on the leader side of things? Oh, one I want to cover is that, so if you know as a leader your top need is certainty, right, there's some things that you can do. So you can set clear standards and systems for how your team operates. So that's going to help you as a leader, right? The other thing you can do is you can communicate frequently and transparently. So this one soothes your own need for certainty, but it's also modeling behavior that you want from your team because it's important that you have that consistency from your team as well. You can build predictable rhythms. So let's say for you it's the financial piece is really bothering you. Okay, well create those weekly check-ins with your finance person, and that'll help soothe that need for the consistency, the comfort, and the understanding and stability of where you're going in your business. Okay, this one is interesting. So there'll be signs that you can read people's behavior and then know your need. So I'll share. I had a client come to me. So his role is to run projects for multiple hospitals across Ontario here. So he takes all of his projects and he goes to, there's 7 CEOs of hospitals across the board. Now, he knows they've all signed off on this policy and this procedure and how things are supposed to work. So he and his team have done everything the way that it was signed off on. He goes, but he knows one of these CEOs is a micromanager. What do you think a telltale sign of a micromanager is? They have a need for certainty. That's why they're in everything. They need to know that they're gonna be okay, that they're not gonna get in trouble, that things aren't gonna break. So I said, okay, so what you first need to know, because he's just in at me for everything. And he's like, I can't get him off my back. I don't know. So I'm like, he doesn't know what he needs. He doesn't know what he's tying you to. So the first thing we need to do is you need to go to him and ask him what his expectations are from this. When you do that, you're allowing him to fulfill his own need for certainty, because if he doesn't even know what it is that he needs from this project, like if he's not clear, you're never gonna be able to deliver, and he's never gonna feel comfortable or safe in this. So the first thing you need to do is get him to express exactly what needs to happen in the project. And then when you do that, now he knows what he wants, You know what he wants, so now you can deliver on it. And now who do you think he's going to trust more than anyone else on the project? You, because he knows that you know how to meet his need for certainty here. So even though he doesn't know that he has a need for certainty, and that's why he's micromanaging and doing all of these things, now we know, right? And so he then went back and said, he told me, he's like, it literally has changed my relationship with the CEO. He's like, it is smooth sailing, and we are on the same page. So this is an example of how when you're able to read what somebody needs, how you can pivot and make sure that you're working with them instead of butting heads. Again, it's like people aren't problems. There's a behavior, and there's a reason why there is a behavior. And if you can figure out what the behavior is and how to fulfill it, or how to, not that we're walking around people pleasing, that's not what I'm saying, but if you can understand how to fulfill the need, it's just so much smoother, and you just don't get frustrated. You just don't loop on these things. Okay, yes?
So out of the 6 needs, like how do you, is there a test you do that tells you which one
Yes.
is your most important need that you need to fulfill or whatever?
Yeah, so as part of one of my coaching programs, I run the assessment on people, and it literally gives you a score for where you are in each one. And so the other thing that's interesting too is, like, let's say your top 2 needs are certainty and love and connection. You will change as a person and how you act and what bothers you and what you do if it's love and connection and then certainty, or if it's certainty and then love and connection. Did I flip them? Yeah.
You did it right.
Okay. So even that, and then sometimes I'll run the assessment, and somebody's love and connection could be like 135, and then the other ones are so low. So now, like, they still have their top 2, but you know what they're like really focused on. And I've also seen how that has impacted a CEO in terms of like not being able to fire people, because they are so trying to get that need for connection. And in this particular one, didn't have a stable relationship outside of work. And so the work and those friendships and relationships at work became so crucial to this person because they scored so high in love and connection that they just couldn't fire people. And this is part of the reason why I actually wasn't here last time, is because they ran out on their 3-month time window to let go of a director of sales who was not performing. And so then they had to pay the full fee again to have this headhunter company replace it. Cost them like $30,000. So once you know this stuff, it can save you so much hassle, time, and energy, and money. Yeah. Okay. Did that answer your question? Okay. Okay. In our personal life, how could certainty play out in our personal life? Any ideas? What do we need? Yeah.
Stability. What do we need? We need
Safety.
relationships, good relationships. And
Yeah. Stable relationship becomes extremely important. Really good communication. So I actually, hold on before I go on a story, let me just make sure I haven't, stable relationships, strong, okay, yeah, so strong communication, stable relationships, and you need routines. They need to know what's happening. So this was interesting when COVID happened. I had a couple that was, clients that were a couple during this time, and when COVID happened, their entire schedule got completely shifted. So they were on completely different things. Her top need was certainty. And the minute that he didn't communicate, like, I'm not gonna be there on time, and there wasn't this like over communication, her head spiraled. And so I've seen this a lot with people whose top need is certainty. There's a lot of fear that can happen really easily there. And hers was, why isn't he here? Is he not doing this? Where is he? Why isn't he not? And so it was this full, sort of thing happened, and it was really just that her need for certainty and the relationship was not being met at that point, and it was because of an external circumstance, which is why I take my clients through how do you fulfill all of your human needs on your own? How do you not rely on other people or the external environment to do it for you? It's very empowering and very freeing. So obviously without this, and this is sort of in the example that I'm saying, you can feel increased anxiety, stress, frustration. So the minute things are unpredictable, like that is hard, which is another point on the leader side of things. If your top need is certainty, it's always having a point, like a plan B, so that you're less rigid and you can be more flexible but still be in your comfort zone. Yeah, so, okay, so any questions there? Okay. So the goal is healthy structure, not control. So people with certainty can get very controlling. So you can recognize that maybe in some past relationships or, but that can play a part there. Now, this part's fun. So we can also use our emotions to fulfill our needs. So remember how I said you're gonna fulfill your needs in positive, negative, or neutral ways? So a quick way to fulfill your need is to use your emotions. What's an emotion that would give you significance? Any ideas? You would think it would be joy. Do you want to know what it is? Anger. Anger gives people significance. If you do not feel significant, anger will do that for you. What happens when you're angry? Your voice raises, right? People pay attention to you. Your physiology changes, so your body changes. Your people are paying attention and they are listening to you, and you feel important when you are angry, right? Whether you realize it or not, that's what's happening. So what about love and connection? What emotion gives us love and connection? There's few, but any ideas?
Sadness?
Yes, bingo. Sadness is a big one that people go to. You think it would be happiness, you think that, right? But it's not, it's sadness. So sadness in two different ways. When we're sad, what happens? We draw people in. Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. But are you okay? We love you, and you draw people in. The other thing that happens, and this one's really common, is actually people connect with themselves. So if you feel disconnected from yourself, sadness allows you to reconnect. And so this creates a crazy 8 pattern, which I will explain. So this is what happens. So think of it like a sideways 8, okay? So this is a pattern that I see all the time. And so what happens is somebody doesn't feel significant. So one way that they can do it is they can get angry. So they yell at everybody, right? This can be at home, can be in the office. And so they get attention here. They feel important. They feel, I'm being heard. People care. They listen to me. And then what can happen is now they feel bad, because it's not really how they want to feel significant. So they have fulfilled their need in a negative way. So then what happens is now they feel bad. So now they come down, and now they need love and connection. So they get sad. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that. And so now they feel sad. But two things happen here. If you were angry all the time, would people keep listening to you?
No.
Would they want to be around you?
No.
So you come down here. But if you're like this all the time and you're sad and you're crying all the time, do people want to be around you?
No.
Nope. So, and also if you think this changes your physiology, you can't stay angry. Like, I don't know how to be. I'm not angry very often. I don't know how to be angry. So I can get angry. But you can't stay in that physiology, right? So what does this do? Complete opposite. You can relax. You relax, you connect with yourself, so you're changing your entire state. Now, because nobody wants to stay with you here, and nobody wants to stay with you here, what do? Let's do it all over again. And they live here. Now, the other thing, I said that there was 3 emotions, or if you fulfill 3 of the needs, it's really hard to break. What else do you think this does? It creates, it creates certainty. It creates certainty. It repeats. And it's certain because I know when I get angry, everybody's going to listen to, take your kids, for example, right? If you have any. I'm really mad. Oh, you're all listening to me now. I'm going to take away your things. This I have practice in. I shouldn't threaten my children. So then now, they know you're angry. Okay, we're going to listen. And again, right? So parents do this all the time with kids. And now, I'm sorry. Okay, let's make up. Let's do it. And now we know every time, and you're teaching your kids this too, but you're certain. You're certain if you get angry, they're going to stop what they're doing, and so it can create a pattern. Not to take us on specifically on the parenting route, but when you have 3, it's hard to break. So how do we sever it? How do we break the pattern? It's hard. But you have to interrupt what you would do. So if you react the same way every time, you'll keep doing it. So first you need awareness, which is part of what I'm helping, hopefully, today is bring awareness to this. The other thing that you can do is react differently. So if I go back to the kids example, right, is if this is happening, the minute, let's say even the kid's angry and they know they're gonna get your attention, because maybe it's the opposite, right? And that's what's happening. If you react differently, so I had one client, she said, my child, temper tantrum every single night. She's like, I do not know how to do it. And I go, well, what are you doing? And so she tells me, and I go, is that what you're doing every single time? Well, yeah. And I'm like, okay, let's try something different. I want you to have a temper tantrum. So she had a temper tantrum instead. Kid did not know how to react. I said, what happened? Just went quiet. She just went quiet. She stopped crying. She stopped. And then I said, and then what happened? And she's like, we started hugging, and then we had a chat. We had a conversation. So I said, you broke your pattern, right? And so you can do different things to break the pattern. Tony Robbins will use swearing. He'll talk about sex. He'll do different things to break a mental pattern that somebody is repeating over and over and over again. But that is a crazy 8 pattern.
You can definitely see that that's where domestic abuse comes into it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
So I'm gonna go home and do the crazy 8 then.
Oh yeah, let's talk about sex.
We're gonna break this. We just have to.
The other thing too I see a lot is guilt. People carry a lot of guilt, and so that can create a even different patterns. But okay, so what can leaders do with this framework? So I think I mentioned this before is when somebody's in your workforce and there's something going on, they're not necessarily a problem with that person, because it's often we think of people and their behaviors that there's a problem, that they are a problem. And it's like, well, what if you look at it, what might be driving this? Is that person who's underperforming at work, are they bored? Do they have a top need of variety? Are you challenging them? Is it a growth thing? Do they not know where they're going in the company? So they're completely checked out and they're, so try and assess them and figure out what's going on. So that's one way. You can build team rituals that meet multiple needs. So I think we've seen a lot of organizations have caught on to this and do different things, but they may not realize why they're doing them or what the need fulfills underneath. And you can also create an event that fulfills all kinds of those needs, right? So there's a couple examples. So recognition gives people significance. Team lunches build connections, so you can do different things. I started a wellness committee way back then, and that was to do a few things. It was for growth for the people, but I didn't realize, the reason why I was doing it was I didn't even know about human needs at that point. Had I have known, I probably would have structured it differently, I would have communicated differently, I would have tweaked things differently. So then check your own leadership style. Are you leading from fear or from fulfillment? I don't know if fulfillment's the right word here, but I kind of touched on that before, but it's are you making decisions because of your need and you're trying to fulfill it because you're afraid to do other things, right? Or for variety, one way that can happen, and I think I talked about this, I don't know if you were all there in my first presentation, but one way of fulfilling variety is to have an affair, right? How are you fulfilling them, and is there better ways to do it? And are you doing things from a place of fear, like not acquiring another company or not firing the person because of that? So how are you making your decisions? And then I'd also suggest you can include this lens in feedback. So you can say things like, I notice you thrive when you're challenged, or I notice that you do really well when you have checklists or procedures. Can we get you more of that? Do you want to be involved in helping create that? So there's different things you can do there. 4-step process to apply the 6 human needs. So basically, identify which 2 needs are currently driving your key decisions. I don't know if you can assess yourself. I personally liked the assessment because it helped me, but you can go through and kind of say, how am I in all of these areas? What am I doing? How am I fulfilling these needs? 2, you can assess whether you're meeting them in a healthy or unhealthy way. So the goal here is, are you doing them is it good for you, good for the people around you, and good for the greater good? That's the goal with each one. Understand the rules you have around how to meet your needs, right? So have you made it really hard to feel love and connection? Have you made it really hard to feel certain and comfortable? Or have you made it easy? What are your things? Do you feel certain from praying or from having $10 million in the bank, right? How do you, and then lastly, adjust by making small intentional changes to meet that need more effectively. When we understand what truly drives us, we unlock the ability to take control of our actions, our businesses, and our relationships. That is today's presentation.
Can we put up the slide of all the neat things?
Yes.
Do you find that there's a larger percentage of people that would lean into like the certainty as the highest priority bucket, or is this equal distribution, or like from your own observation, in most like certainty was seemingly the one we leaned in on today.
Yeah.
And from listening to you, I feel like I run into people that demonstrate all of those exact things.
Yeah.
I think it's not the case for me, and I think it might be why I often run into these same problems with people, because I'm dealing with certain people, and I'm trying to figure out where I land. But I think that's probably why I have these problems that I reoccurringly have.
Yeah.
But they're always seemingly with people with high certainty priority.
Yeah, I have, from what I've seen, is people with the top need for certainty and they don't know it are maybe struggle in more ways. And once they know it, then they also feel a huge weight of relief because they know how to do it. I'd say the ones I see the most, and it's also interesting because people who come to me are maybe more of a certain type of person, so there could be a bias there, but I see a lot of love and connection as being in the top two. Growth, which I think growth is probably because if you're working with me, you want to learn and grow and you prioritize development. But and the ones that I've seen with certainty, yeah, I've seen probably the most struggle there, especially in personal relationships. There's a lot of the fear and like untrust.
I would imagine if you get two people both with high priority uncertainty, they probably get along quite well.
Ironically, when I have done any of the couple ones, if one has a high need for certainty, the other one, they don't.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I don't know. If you put two certainties together, I'm not sure what would happen. But
Well, I feel like they would both communicate very well. They would both
'Cause they
share
need.
like calendar and structure.
yes,
Communication being a key thing. They seem to prioritize very similar things, so they probably would see that from each other. Structure, like a lot of those attributes.
I look at that and I think like it's like negatives attract. You know what I mean? So you won't get a lot of certainty with certainty.
In most
because-
scenarios, but in
Yeah.
this one, from my personal experience, I'm seeing. I think I'm like seeing like where my problems arise. I
Right.
think I would guess that I have a unique set of those needs that would be on my priority, potentially different than many people, which doesn't come into play for friends and acquaintances. It's usually the people I get super close with that become problematic. Yeah, like 'cause I'm a terrible communicator. I just everything just stays to myself. I have a low priority on love and connection. I don't feel like there's no point in being sad, and there's not a great purpose in being angry at it. I'm very stoic because I don't desire sympathy, nor do I demand attention. Like everything's very stoic. So I often hear I'm hard to read. I'm very bad at communicating, and that's because I just take everything in on my own and I'll sort it out myself. We saw that with the LME board. I just said, fuck it, I'll do it on my own. I prefer to not work with anyone. Like it's not a good thing, right?
See, I wouldn't have guessed that of you
Yeah.
to be that way.
Right.
But now that you say it out loud, it actually does make sense.
It's
Yeah,
making sense to
it
me. I
does,
never
yeah.
really thought of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I'm-
those are the problems that I have with people that are prioritizing certainty. It's not because I don't respect them. I'm just not great at communicating. I just
see,
sort it out on my own.
and so what?
I'm the same.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at communicating.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So why that can also kind of create an issue is that other people, so this is another topic, but will put meaning on things. And one person will say that if you don't message me back or if you don't communicate, it means you don't like me. It means I'm not worthy. It means I'm unlovable, right? It like goes that deep, right? So when you don't, other people will just be like, oh, they're busy.
Yeah.
But you don't know what that means. And then add in the top need if they need certainty and they have this attached meaning to this behavior. Yeah, that would explain some things potentially.
It's interesting.
It's also really interesting to see how these things change as you start to fill your needs. So years ago, I would have told you my top need is love and connection because just because of my childhood and
Yes.
and what I needed to feel significant in my life. But now that that is not a problem in my life, and I feel very loved and connected at home,
Yeah.
I actually find that some of those other ones are now my top need.
Yeah,
of
they
where
can
I need to
change.
fulfill. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So like I had a client and his top need was love and connection, but consistently was in rocky relationships with women. Like would go in, he would put everything into it because it was his top need and it was so important to him. So he'd put everything into it, and to the point where she wouldn't treat him that well. Like she wouldn't show up for dinners on time, so he's just like, this isn't working for me. And so I said, okay, well, you're relying on this person to fulfill your need for love and connection, and only this person. I'm like, what else are you doing? And he, nothing. Okay, so how do you fulfill that for yourself? And that looks different for everybody. So this is about also understanding your blueprint. So I took him through that. So for him, I said, okay, well, what is it? And he goes, well, this was over a couple sessions, took some time. He goes, I really like playing music. I feel good when I'm with my guitar. I'm like, okay. He's like, I feel like I connect with myself. I'm like, okay, great. He goes, and then the floodgates start open. I like reading. I'm like, do you ever read? No. I'm like, okay, so why don't we? But these were times where he could be alone and connect with himself doing certain things. And that takes the pressure off of the relationship, because now you're not looking to somebody else to fulfill what you need. You are doing it yourself. And this is when we talk about making yourself unstoppable, unshakable, like these things, is because you know what your needs are and you know how to fulfill them for yourself. Then you can work on other things like your triggers and meanings that you've put on things, and your belief systems and stories that you have that aren't serving you, that keep you stuck and fearful and not doing the things that you want to do. But yeah, it's all a process. Oh,
I think
sorry, I can move this.
I think in relationships specifically, like, so my husband and I are complete opposites. Home, we couldn't be more opposite. But what was really important to us, and we never called it a blueprint, but now that makes sense. But was what in times where it was really, really difficult, it's because neither one of us understood the other's blueprint and and what that person's non-negotiables were. But now that we like openly and actively communicate that, and that's taken a long time of our own personal therapy. We don't do therapy together, we do it separate. But now being able to come back and say, okay, there was friction at this time because this wasn't being met in my blueprint.
Yep.
I'm gonna go home and use that, thank you. And so now like really talking about like, so yes, I'm a firm believer in that you have to fill your own cup first.
Yeah.
And take care of yourself first. But it's also, I think, important that you communicate what your needs are so that they can be met in your relationships. I don't even just mean relationships at home, same thing. As you were talking through some of these things, I definitely see how business partners
Yes.
can not be cohesive.
Yeah.
And I think that we have that at Fortify. We have 3 partners, and we are all very, very different, and our needs would be very different if we did this test.
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy.
And it creates friction in our business.
Yeah.
Now it's great because we all bring something different to the table, but when the other person when one partner doesn't understand the other partner, that can
Yeah.
create a lot of friction very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think ironically, my business partner and my wife have similar need sets. So if I can crack the code on one, I might be able to crack the
Yeah.
code.
Maybe they're trying to crack the code on you.
I didn't, but this is making sense. If I was to guess, I think mine actually goes significance, growth, variety as my top 3.
I was thinking the same thing.
Significance not being external at all.
Mhm.
I don't publish things on Instagram. I don't care for likes and comments and things like that. But I do think that the center point of most of the things I do is for my self-significance, right? Like I work out so it makes me feel better. I
Yeah.
do things, and the growth also makes me feel significant. I now have new information. I have new capabilities. I have new stuff. So I think I want to feel significant to my kids. I like that it's very important that I'm a role model. Like these are all like points of self-significance.
So it's interesting too.
Variety.
Yeah. So how you can break it down too, And I mean, I can even touch, but like relationships can suffer because others may feel unseen, right? Because you,
Yeah. 100%.
but yeah, like if I think about it, when I went into HR, if I look at it now, knowing the human needs and how they work, I went in there thinking, oh, this is fun, it's exciting, I'm getting to do different things. I'm recruiting people, I'm in health and safety meetings, I'm working with lawyers, I'm drafting contracts, I'm literally was doing everything. And then, which was really fun and exciting. So I was fulfilling my need for variety at that point. Then things got boring for me. I was like, I know how to do this, I know how to do that. I don't want to go to the same meeting every week. I was just like, this is boring. And now I'm like, well, that makes sense because I'm like, look at what I do now. I'm like, I'm fulfilling my need for variety by like running podcasts, doing blogs. I have like a couple different jobs. I'm like, and so that fulfills my need for variety. But I'm doing it in a way that fits me and makes me happy, and it also is growth. And it's also better for the people around me. So I think about the greater good. I'm learning, I'm investing in my education, I'm delivering to other people. And so it's not just for me, for my family, it's also for the greater good to share. And so but there's different ways of fulfilling it. But looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, I can see why I got out of that. And
You could even bring that into LME, because I think we all felt like going to the same meeting every week wasn't fulfilling the variety piece. But now that we have a different topic every single week, it fulfills that need of new interests and growth. And
yeah, definitely. Awesome. Look, we're right on time. Okay,
Love it.
good. Any other questions?
Side question, maybe outside of this content, but
Yeah.
leading off of this content, do you present this to teams? Like, would you come into a business
Yes.
and do something like this for a team?
Yes, I do that too.
Okay.
Add it to my variety bucket. I'm like, pardon?
Probably more in depth as well.
Yes.
So you have more
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And so like more employee focus as well. So for instance, we have like a year-end team meeting every
Yes.
year. Our year-end's coming up.
Yeah.
And I want to bring in a speaker.
Yeah.
And something that is not IT related. Something
Yes.
that is personal growth related. So
Mhm.
would you?
Yeah,
is that
absolutely.
something you would do?
Yeah, I'd want to know more about your business, and then
Yeah.
I like to really tailor to the audience.
Yeah.
So we would chat. Yeah.
We work with very awkward IT.
Oh, okay. Well,
And is that
with
something
engineers.
that you would, like at a presentation like that, would you run through the certainty to get to, so that everybody kind of checks the boxes and then you do the score after and you're like, okay, your need is certainty. Do you do that for the employees at a meeting like that? Or?
I couldn't do it at the meet, so it takes a bit of time. I run a report. So like if I wanted to do it one-off, I usually would charge, so I would charge $400. You'd get the assessment, and you'd also get a one-on-one with me where I would run you through exactly what it means, and I would also talk you through how to fulfill all of your own needs.
$400 per person.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I could look at what a package for a group, because I
Yeah.
haven't done that
Yeah.
specifically, but more like individually
That's if
with
they-
people.
That's if you're looking to do that, right? It's very specific
Yeah.
per person.
Y-
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
I can
But
see
otherwise,
you-
a general presentation
Yeah.
is an option.
Well, I would look at if you wanted that for your employees and to walk away, I would look at how many people, and what that would obviously do like a discount.
Yeah.
We have companies have assessments done for the key stakeholders. I can imagine it would allow you to have a better idea on who you're working with. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
tailor those leadership.
Yeah.
Well, and then they know. Like that's part of it too. It's that awareness piece. And how many of us actually sit and are like, even once you know these needs, then to go and be like, how do I fulfill my need for certainty? What does it take? Love and connection is a fascinating one. Like if you sit there and really think, how do I feel loved? And the work with Dr. John Gottman, you guys are from the 5 love languages. So he kind of touches a bit on that and helping you figure that out, but it's more than that. It's so personal. Like you really need to be like, how do I fulfill that? Are you like that CEO who walks into a room to fulfill significance and needs people to like make eye contact with you? And then you feel like, okay, I'm okay, this is a good day. Or like, what is it, right? And I don't mean to like, I'm not making fun of him, but it's a crazy, the rules that we can have. And a lot of it comes from our childhood and things that we didn't get, things that we, but not many people take the time to sit down and think about it. And honestly, when I did, it was like life-changing. Stuff that used to trigger and bother me and like make me cry, and like it was after sitting there and questioning these things and learning about myself, it literally was gone. It takes so much to trigger me now, and I know what they are. So I know I can get ahead of it, and I know I'm like,
And break the cycle.
yes, yeah, yeah.
Well, if
Love
you
that.
understand, like, it's just the way that we're built, and I would, like, even I would find it easier, like, I could now recognize, okay, even though I feel like it's unnecessary for me to communicate this thing, I recognize now that it's necessary that they receive this information.
So that, and
Or else they spiral, so.
this also, it makes,
It's not hard, I just don't see why.
yeah. It also makes the difference between there's a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3 relationship. In a level 1 relationship, the people are focused on their own needs. So they're not even looking to fulfill the other person in the relationship's need. They're literally like, I'm not getting what I need, this is what, and so that happens, and they're not, like, they rarely have sex, it's just completely separate. To get to a level 2, they are sometimes thinking about the other person's need. You know, maybe they do something once in a while. At a level 3, you know so well how to meet the other person's needs, and you're focused on it, that like the two people are just, what do you need? They're not even thinking about themselves. And it changes your sex life from like none to like once a week, maybe, to like all the time. And so, but once you have to know how to fulfill somebody else's needs and then prioritize it.
There's probably relationships too where one person is at level 3 and the other person is at level 1.
Yeah, those won't last long
Those
if the
won't
other
last
person
long.
doesn't figure it out. Yeah. Yeah.
This has been really awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. I hope my intention of delivering some value.